So this is going to be a review for Wish, the latest film from Walt Disney Studios Animation. The film is really the culmination of the 100-year anniversary celebration Disney has done throughout the year of 2023. Now, I didn't need the prospects of this film being released on Disney's 100th celebration year to look forward to it. The film series that I look forward to the most is films from Walt Disney Studios Animation. So that's traditional, regular Disney, so no Pixar or anything like that. The legacy of Walt Disney Studios Animation is second to none. Stories that have inspired, stories that have been admired. While Disney, through its 100 years, has branched out to entertain us in a myriad of ways, the foundation that the company was built upon was its work in traditional animation. The trailers and basically all marketing for Wish certainly played into the whole celebratory 100-year celebration, saying a story a century in the making, and from the creators of classics like Frozen, The Lion King, Moana, Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella, and Encanto. You can argue that your favorite Disney film was left out of this little marketing bit here, but these films do encompass a wide span of Disney's history and are all regarded as classics, both current and old school. I'm guessing that a trailer that said from the creators of Home on the Range, Chicken Little, and Strange World wouldn't have the same magical feel. Appropriately so, the film is a fantasy-style musical, the most iconic of Disney's stories. In the Kingdom of Rosas, a castle worker named Asha discovers that the king of the kingdom, King Magnifico, is keeping the wishes of the citizens for selfish reasons. He's kind of like an all-powerful magician, sorcerer type person. Asha then decides to take action upon this after wishing on a star that provides her the extra help she needs to set the wishes free. Part of the movie's tribute to the history of Disney is its art style. Classic 2D animation still encompasses the most of Disney's history as of now, but as we all know, for better or worse, since 2005, 3D animation has been the main style of Disney throughout their traditional Disney animated films. Wish combines both styles to a style never before seen in a Disney film. From what I've read, the backgrounds are completely 2D, the characters are 3D generated, but they're done with 2D style shading and outlining. After watching the film, a friend of mine mentioned to me that the style reminded him of Paperman, a sort of acclaimed Disney short that came out about a decade ago. That style has never been done in a movie before. It was something unique, appropriate for this style as it helped accomplish its mission. It was supposed to celebrate both 2D animation and 3D animation, and I thought it was a good hybrid of both, and definitely cool to see something unique that I've never seen before, at least in a Disney film. I don't think the style is as good as 2D animation or 3D animation at their best. There were some moments where the rendering movement was off, the frame rate was off. It kind of looked like stop motion, some bits in the beginning. This was definitely when some of the characters were moving too fast. And like I said, it did look like stop motion animation. But for the most part, this movie's look did work. The animation, though, is just the surface level and how this movie is a love letter to Disney's history. Woven into this movie are references, writing-wise, story-wise, and visually, to iconic Disney stories. Among the most notable while watching the film is Asha's friends. Now, this was an advantage of not seeing or examining the trailers or pictures too much before the movie was released. Now, no story spoilers here, but her friends end up being a representation of each of the dwarfs from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the first film from Walt Disney Studios Animation. At first, I thought the one that had the same color scheme as Dopey was a coincidence, but I should have known that with Disney, there are no coincidences. And slowly through the film, I began to realize that, oh shit, it's the whole Seven Dwarfs team here as her friends. Now, it starts out kind of subtle, but by the end, they really do try to spell it out with some of them. But it was a charming tribute to discover. Snow White was definitely the Disney film here, though, to receive the most references, but there are Disney references throughout the film. Some more subtle than others. By the end, they really do come like rapid fire, a bit too much to be honest. The movie is relying a whole lot on Disney nostalgia, but obviously this movie is a special occasion film, so that's why those references aren't without warrant here. There's even a story element here that mirrors the company's centennial celebration, directly referencing 100 years. I was at D23 in 2022 when they were sort of showcasing this film for the first time, and they did say that they made this film specifically to celebrate their 100-year anniversary. In thinking about it more, the movie is definitely very similar to 2007's Enchanted, similar in how it uses Disney history to frame its story through all the references and knowing how Disney films work and all that. Besides the references, the movie is framed by the traditional Disney elements found in their iconic old school classics. And by old school, I mean everything from the Disney Renaissance and before that. You got your princess/protagonist, the sidekicks, both cute and the talking variety, and your villain. Asha is our protagonist here, who on our Disney diversity checklist is of Afro-Hispanic descent, and I guess a worker in the Rosas Castle. Now, based on the trailers and marketing, I thought she was going to end up being the next Disney princess, but she's neither one by birth or marriage in this film. But she might as well be a princess based on having the typical Disney princess traits that they're known for.
If you wear a dress and you have an animal sidekick, you're a princess.
As I mentioned, she discovers the true nature of wishes and then embarks on a mission to right the wrong done by the king. Now, Asha doesn't have any defining major traits or skills that some of the more recent princesses over the last decade have had. You know, she's not a skilled warrior like Raya, or artistically skilled like Rapunzel, or magically empowered like Elsa. But she is a selfless, kind-hearted soul that you can definitely root for here. If anything, she felt more similar to Mulan than anything in terms of how she's fighting for her family member. That's her big motivation here. Her highlight moment is definitely her song, This Wish, which has prominently been featured in all the trailers for this movie. But it's definitely a beautiful song, definitely the standout song among some decent tunes in this film, and is definitely Asha's standout moment for sure. Again, she's not an official princess, but she might as well be, kind of like how Mulan isn't a princess by marriage or birth. Similar to how princess stories have been since Brave in 2012, there's no love story here, so take that for what it's worth. Now, no princess story would be complete without her sidekick companions, and she has two here. She has the Star, who is the embodiment of the star from the classic Disney song, When You Wish Upon a Star. It's a cute little guy or girl, it's not really clear. Cute little thing, has its moments, and there's definitely plenty of merchandise potential there with how cute a lot of the audience will think that little guy or girl is. And then there's Valentino, her talking goat. Now, he starts off as a regular non-talking goat, but gains the power to talk once Star sort of sprinkles the sort of pixie magic dust on him. He's voiced by Alan Tudyk, who has been a part of basically every Disney Animation Studios film since Wreck-It Ralph. Here he's doing a very sort of over-the-top theatrical voice, but he's a solid sidekick, earns his share of laughs in the film.
I'm talking. I am talking. Ha! Who knew my voice would be this low?
Oftentimes in these films, the sidekicks can be the real sort of scene stealers of the film. We're talking about Timon and Pumbaa, Olaf, and Mushu, just to name a few. Now, I don't think Valentino or the Star are quite on that level, but they're definitely some good sidekicks who definitely earn their role in the film. Among the elements that I was most curious about this film was King Magnifico. Now, the worst part of Disney films of this revival era over the last decade and a half or so has been their handling of villains. Instead of having classic bad guys like Maleficent, Jafar, or Hades, from Frozen and since then, Disney and Pixar films have gone the route of having twist villains, or in some cases like Ralph Breaks the Internet or Encanto, just not having a villain at all. This shit has frustrated me to no end, because Disney villains have been iconic to the traditional Disney stories. You think about all the great bad guys and bad girls through the years, there's too many to name. But then you get to something like Zootopia and the twist villain there, and you're like, what the f is this shit? And then I remember being really frustrated by Encanto when you hear the We Don't Talk About Bruno song. I'm like, all right, here comes a great Disney bad guy coming up. And then you see him and you're like, not exactly what I was hoping for here. Well, for those annoyed with the recent treatment of Disney villains, you'll be happy to witness the return of the traditional Disney antagonist. Now, I won't go into any of the particulars of how much of a traditional villain he is, but story-wise, he's harboring the wishes of the kingdom for what he believes is a valid reason in the interest of the people. Now, through the movie, there are moments where you wonder what direction exactly are they going to go with his story. He does have a great quote-unquote bad guy song that was very well done and definitely the highlight of that character. it definitely had Be Prepared kind of vibes and even imagery. I think Magnifico does make a rather dramatic shift at a certain point in the film. It may or may not have been explained by magic. Regardless, though, it was nice to see more of a traditional Disney baddie. That's definitely more representative of most of Disney's history, not this sort of twist villain shit they've been doing over the last decade and a half. But of course, you can't have a Disney fantasy type film without the music. You know, I've already talked a bit about This Wish, Asha's song, definitely the standout song. Even though I'd heard it a lot through the marketing, it's still really great to see the whole full song and how the scene plays out. It definitely was special. But besides that, as I mentioned, King Magnifico's solo song was definitely another really good one. I think the opening song kind of reminded me a little bit too much of the opening song of Encanto. It had the same kind of vibes and energy, and I was like, a little bit derivative there. Now, the movie has a nice pace. I never came close to getting bored. It has the typical Disney animation runtime of being about an hour and 35 minutes. That's with the credits, and you'll definitely want to stay for the credits. And the plot centering around wishes definitely was a nice tribute to Disney history. Now, I do think there are parts towards the end of the movie where the tributes and references to Disney are coming a bit too frequently. You know, there comes a point where subtlety definitely goes out the door. And it goes, okay, here's this reference, there's this tribute, here's this visual reference, and then there's just a lot of that in the final parts of the film. But as I mentioned, it's not every day that the entertainment Goliath of our lifetime turns 100, so I'll let it slide to a certain degree. But at a certain point, it did sort of overtake the actual story that was going on there, which was a decent one, and overall the movie was very good as well. So Wish will end up getting 8 out of 10 magical stars from me. For first viewing, I definitely did enjoy the movie. We'll definitely have to see how it holds up upon repeat viewings. Now, as a lover of Disney history, some might call me a historian, watching the credit sequence was definitely the final cherry on top. It was a tribute to all of Walt Disney Studios animation. Except for a few films that were left out, they definitely got the whole drive-by treatment done on them. I'd like to know what the reasoning was behind leaving certain films out of the end credit sequence and why certain films did make it in. Now, I saw the film on its official Wednesday opening night. My auditorium, though, wasn't really all that packed at all. I don't know if it's because it was the middle of the weekday and people were waiting to see the movie on the weekend. You know, in a year where Disney has had a beautiful 100-year celebration, but they've also just had a whole bunch of financial disappointments. Quantumania, Haunted Mansion, Indiana Jones, The Little Mermaid to some degree. Recently, the Marvels. It's just kind of been a disastrous year for them financially. Hopefully Wish can be a wish comes true for them when it comes to box office, but we'll just have to see how the weekend plays out. So that'll do it for this review of Disney's Wish. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching.